Well, Mark, I am super excited to have you on the show today.
Yeah, I'm very excited too. I'm a little curious how this is supposed to go, but I'm really excited about it too.
Yeah, well, the thing that gets me the most excited is I have just been super happy joining Colliers, and having you as one of my colleagues is just super fun. And I really didn't know you before. I mean, obviously I've heard your name forever, but I'm actually excited to get to know you a little more today.
Yeah, that's good. You know, I think it's important to hear people's story, and that's a big part of life. A big part of what we do as a business is learning someone's story, you know, more than just the thin layer of it. So that's good. Yeah, love to be a part of that.
Yeah, no, I so appreciate it. And you have a good story. I mean, the little tidbits that I know about it are kind of fun, I think. Kind of fun. Like, and so let's just start with, how did you get into this crazy business?
So my grandpa was a commercial real estate guy, sold buildings, houses, and insurance. My dad went to work for him. He did that for quite a few years. Then he went into leasing and was an office leasing guy. He did the IDS Center when that was built.
Really?
NFC Center. Many of the iconic office buildings today. My dad, Wally, was the leasing agent. Jerry Roundhorse had him on speed dial, and so when he was going to build a building, he'd say, "Hey, Wally, got the next building coming. Finish up that one." He'd move him in. He'd do that for a year or two. Move to the next one. That was kind of his career.
Really?
IDS Center was probably
did he do it for a company? Or
he did it on his own, but then he did it as IDS Properties when they did the IDS Center.
Okay.
Which is kind of a fun story, too. IDS Center being such the iconic office building for Minneapolis, he had a little bit of a fun with that where he invited a reporter to the rooftop and had a fancy lunch on a girder, you know, and wrote a big story about the IDS centers getting built, and that became this famous newspaper article for quite a few years. It was talked about. He got almost fired for doing that because he wasn't supposed to do that, and I guess I don't fall far from his tree, you know, in the fun of the business and all of that.
Push the envelope.
So then I sold homes for a year, and it was dismal. So only sold, I think one home in a year. So that was my year.
Okay.
And interest rates were 16% at the time. And I said, "Dad, I really am only doing this to fill the gap. Can I come to work for you? I'm getting married on June 29th. You know, and so we started at a company called Robert Bobbitt Associates the week before I got married. And that is going to be next week will be my 40th anniversary in the industry. And I only know that because my wedding anniversary is at the end of the month. So
Congratulations.
40 years of marriage to the same person. Yep, it's good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a super big accomplishment.
Yeah, it
Even
is.
more so than being in this industry.
And it's probably a bigger accomplishment for my wife, Vicki, because I'm not exactly easy always. It's exciting, but you know, that causes some stuff. But anyway, it's good. So I got into the business and went to work leasing and managing and doing all that, and that just kind of grew. And then in the 90s, I met a guy, a company called AMB, that wanted to buy a property I was managing and leasing as an investment sale. AMB was the REIT that became Prologis, and I said, "Well, can I help on this sale?" And I did. So I helped through this process, and I said, "Well, that was really fun. I'd like the sales side of the business more." And so then that morphed into investment sales. I knew nothing about it, but I just helped them buy 3 million square feet because I knew every owner and just said, "Hey, would you sell your building?" And I had a really good buyer. So that kind of launched me into that business, which is funny that I'm in this business of investment sales, which it's such a sophisticated part of the business because I really only went to high school. You know, I have dyslexia a little bit, you know, and wasn't very good at school. And so having done this for all these years, I can now proudly say this was what my thing was. Went to Burnsville High School was my education, and that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. So then, how did you have to feel like you had to compensate for that, or did you?
I did. Yeah, that's interesting. So my story would go something like, I learned how to communicate by word because I wasn't as well written. I couldn't really write a report or any of those things, and letters are always such a tricky part, and it was on a typewriter with whiteout, and it was a different season for business then. And so I just really dug into the relationship, you know, and learned a little bit more about who the person was, and that really became, I did business with my friends. I did business with people I got to know well, and I was really interested in them. And so that really kind of transcended into how I do my business. And I learned I always need smart people to be teammates with. And so I've always had, a smart team of people that I'm partners with that have skills that I don't have. Even though I have high emotional skills and relational skills, I don't always have the other part. So that's how I've
So who have your partners been over the years?
Oh my. I've had quite a few different partners because everyone's life changes. But like Neil Driscoll, who became the director of Liberty, he was one of my partners. John Dostal, who's head of University of Minnesota, so real estate. He was one of my partners. Sean Moore. I'm going to miss Matt Klein. Currently, I have Peter Laird, Tom O'Brien, and had done a lot of work with John McCarthy as well. And so I don't know. I probably had 10 or 12 people that have been my partners, and that's really been part of it as well. Sharing a success. The funnest part of the business is winning the business.
Yeah.
The second and distant second is closing the deal, because it's like by the time it's closed, it's like I better get a check soon because I broke my pick on this thing.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
Yeah. So you can say that you've had a lot of those successes and the wins and the losses and worked with big teams.
Yeah.
And so your whole team came over to Colliers, which has been a great thing for Colliers to have, and you're, pretty special to get to work with. And we're actually starting to work on a couple of projects together.
Yeah. I am, shout out to Colliers, and I actually like it so much more than I even thought I would. It's worked out so much better. It's really a great company.
So let's unpack that. Why it's so important is because culture is everything. Mm-hmm. It's not just the check, right?
100%.
Yeah, the culture gets you to work, gets you to be there. What is the culture of your work environment, and and why do you want to do that? And that makes all the difference in the world. And we are the change makers. We as individuals all have to invest our energy into having a good culture. So,
So can I get personal with you? Because I feel like you have a really strong faith that guides you.
I do, yeah.
And that's one of the things that I just find super endearing. And in the short time that we've worked together, I've been inspired by you in a variety of ways. Yeah. So talk to me about how I think you're pretty open about your faith, but also just not in a way it's in an endearing way, not in a way that turns people off. Tell me about where that comes from. And
yeah, so I think your faith should be nutritious to the people around you. It should be one of those kinds of things that it has a positive effect even before they hear you say, Jesus Christ is my Lord and personal Savior. They should know that before you have to tell them. And so I think that's part of it. I think that the journey I've been on in that is how to do that, because we are all broken. We all have stuff. But sharing who you are as a person, and even the intimate part of what I'm not quite right about, certain things about that aren't perfect in my own life or whatever that is, right? And so I think that gives the opportunity to share that, and the story, right? So everyone has a different story. So we lead these mission trips, which we'll talk about on this thing.
Yeah,
so,
I'd like to very much.
Oh, yeah, great. So in that, my wife and I have come up with a plan to say, okay, here you are, we're together. We're going to be with 25 people during the time of getting ready for the trip and having the trip. We really want to equip someone to be able to say, what's your story? And so this last trip, Vicki had this great idea that she said, well, let's make a newspaper headlines. Let's the front page of a newspaper, and let's everyone create their own front page of the newspaper. And maybe we'll do that on our Colliers trip that we're going to do. And everyone can kind of say, 62-year-old man, does this or does that, right? And things like that. You kind of make the story of what that is. And so that turns into your own faith in who you are, right? And so for myself, sharing who Jesus is in my life and how it's made a difference in my life is important to who I am as a real estate person as well. Because I don't think we're just one person. We're not just a real estate person. We're not just a preacher. We're not just a dad or a grandpa. We're all of those things. And so we should be doing something with all of that, And so I just had my 6th grandchild last week.
She's so cute.
Which is awesome.
So
awesome.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yep. And, even in that, had a story in itself, because my daughter and son-in-law had challenges, with a couple other births, and so we had ups and downs in that. We shared that well, and so that really helps some of the people that also are struggling with childbirth and pregnancy and all the other parts. So I think if we share the skinned elbows and skinned knees, it's really helpful, And so with that, I think that our real estate market is the same way. So what's interesting is I don't go to work because I want to go, I don't have to. I have to, and I want to. We're not the Red Cross at Colliers, right? So we're in it to make a money. We're in it to make a difference, but we can do it in a way that's positive. We can do it in a way that makes a difference in the clients. And so we always solve for what's the client experience. And I think sharing your own story and saying, hey, this is who I am as a teammate of this group is a difference, right? Just to say, hey, we're robots and we're selling buildings, that's no good. And so I think that that's part of what you and I like about our lives, right? We share what we're doing, we're talking about our things, we're doing, with our lives. And, and I think like Colliers has agreed to let us lead it's not really a mission trip because it's a service trip with Colliers, but it's kind of similar to a mission trip, right? Where we'll build something, we're going to serve the community that we are in there in Consolito, Dominican Republic. We're going to give food away. We're going to care for the needs of these people. And it's kind of funny. People go on these trips because they think, oh, I'm going to go and I'm going to bless someone. And that they come home, they realized, I didn't bless them as much as I was blessed by going on the trip.
Absolutely.
So I got through that without crying. I'm a crier. So,
so yeah,
and it's kind of like that was kind of this is like, to me, it's really important. So,
Yeah. Well, it's, I think just kind of the way that you go through life, it just feels like, I don't know, you just kind of wake up every day and do kind of the right thing. And even, it takes all of the pressure off, just the way that you approach life. I don't know.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's important to do the next right thing, but that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. I'm kind of well known for a couple of really big sales, right? And those sales didn't happen.
Tell that story. I mean, those stories, that's really...
Okay, but it's what I was going to say is they didn't just happen because I thought about it. They happened with great amount of effort, great time invested, and just kept serving, and eventually it came out. And my dad always said, if you enter into the business and you provide a good product and you are a good servant, you'll get paid well. You don't have to worry about that part. And so I always kind of enter into relationships of people that own buildings and eventually are going to need our help. I'm in no hurry for that. And so, like a lot of people talk about the industrial equities, John Allen, we sold that, the very first time Blackstone bought something industrial in Minneapolis was with this awesome portfolio that John Allen had spent his life building. And he built the very best industrial in Minneapolis. And it's like he was very careful to, talk about selling it, right? And so we started talking about it, and just a quick 22 years later, we got the deal done. and that was kind of telling too, like what, and then for him, he didn't ever build these buildings to sell, and so it was just at the right time for him with Blackstone coming to the market and all the other things. And then shortly after that, Gary Holmes saw, the John Allen transaction as it's happening and said, I think now would be a good time for me to contemplate the same thing and with that same group. And so Blackstone was fortunate to be able to buy $650 million worth of industrial real estate from CSM. And so those two things they'll always be my, whatever the term is, opus or whatever that is, right? The big thing, the Everest, of it. But it really isn't my career. Those deals were two things that happened in my time. And at the time I was partners with Dave Berglund and Colin Ryan, and so it was a great thing for our team to do that because we'd been working on it for a long time. In fact, Colin once said to me, he says, Mark, are you in the friend zone with this deal, or is this something going to happen, and eventually did, right? So that was kind of, it was really special to get those done, and they're really good for our market because the market changed with this large investment from institutional money like Blackstone. The rents just started growing. And a lot of people have really benefited from this thing. And now Capital Partners is probably the largest property owner in Minneapolis, and they're riding the plan that Blackstone started.
That's actually true,
right? Growing the rents at a great pace, and Minneapolis industrial market has so much good things going for it.
Yeah.
So now, with that, I partnered recently with Tom O'Brien, and he's even a better human than anyone could even know. And so Tom has had about 80% of his business be office, and 20% of his business has always been industrial, and I'm kind of always been about the same flip-flop. And Peter Litter and I really have been working focused on industrial. So now, as we launch into, this is the only time in our lifetime this office thing is going to happen. This will never happen again. We can talk about that quick if you want. But
absolutely.
So now we're kind of doing all of that, and so we're trying to help and be a part of more of that. So
yeah, and it is an interesting time for office.
Yep.
Really kind of as a result of the pandemic, and
it will never happen again in our lifetime. And so, with so many office buildings having changed how they are used and needed, the obsolescence has so quickly moved over. It's just many of these buildings will never be the same after that. And right after the pandemic came, I was a panelist at an industrial conference. We got to talk about this office market. And it was like the months after the pandemic came out, and the office market changed forever. And I said, well, I have one quick comment to say about that, is that if you have an office building in the downtown and it has a mortgage, it probably will be in foreclosure. And everyone's just like, oh, no way. It's like, that can't be. And I'm like, no, the way this is going to happen, and it's awkwardly followed suit with that, So there's going to be a few that will avoid that. But for the most part, there's going to be a change of ownership. And then 5 years later, it's going to be another change of ownership as buildings get repositioned and repurposed and released, and then reselling them a second time. So
so you're ready to do all of that again.
Yeah, I'm 62, and I figure that another 40 years of this and I'll be done. So I'm halfway
40?
done. I'm kidding, but I mean,
I just want to make sure. I thought you said 4 or 40.
I said 40, but
okay.
I don't. It's an exaggerated thing, just because I can't imagine not doing this, and I have no conversation in my head about not doing this in the near term and years to come. So.
Yeah, but are you doing it differently than you used to? Because your motivation has to be just a little different.
Yeah, so I think I'm on the team more the person that is going to be relational farming, social farming, a lot of the, how, and learning what someone does for owns their building. How does that work? How can we help you kind of triangulate a need for the service, and having a team behind me that then probably does a lot of the heavy lifting. Yep.
Okay.
But I'm in the deal. I'm not, like we had a listing this last week given to us, and they said, but Mark, we don't want to just have, we want to make sure we get your time too. And I'm like, I'm in. So I really need that message to get out there. It's like, I'm in the office early, as you know, and I'm in there all day. I'm staying late. Yep.
Yeah. So. It's kind of fun to be part of that bigger office, It is, I'm actually really enjoying it. Yeah. Yep. It's a good group of people, and like you said, the culture is great, and yet it's super entrepreneurial, even though we have all the resources and tools of this huge company.
I got to admit, there was a moment where I thought, well, maybe I should change things, and right before the hurricane in Sanibel, we bought a house and renovated it and all this. Maybe we'll part-time in Florida and something like that. I know we both share interest in Florida, and that hurricane came through, and it took me 9 months to rebuild that and to do all of that. And afterwards I realized I want to be in the office. I don't want to be calling it in.
Yeah.
So that's kind of sure, I'll visit it and be down there like everybody travels.
Yes, of course.
And we don't need to be in our office. I have 4 kids, 2 of them are in real estate. One of them works remotely most of the time. He works for LivCor in Dallas oversees many apartments for them in the Dallas market in Blackstone. And my other daughter works for Altus. And so it's interesting. That work isn't always just at your desk in the office.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and that's the beauty of this business is that there is flexibility. We were virtual our entire existence.
Yeah.
But it was different when you went and met with everybody versus like just sitting on a Zoom call all day. So I think
it's better to meet with someone.
It's really good to be.
Yeah. I like being face to face.
Yeah, me too.
And that kind of full circle to our conversation, hearing their story.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think that to be interested in people's story is the important part, right?
Totally agree.
That's the whole thing, right? Like when you meet someone, it's like, okay, great, nice to meet you. No, I want to understand what makes you tick.
100%.
Tell me about your story. How did you, like you are doing, what you are doing you're a story finder.
I could do this every day, all day. I love it so much.
I know it, and so not everyone's story is super interesting. Mine's not crazy interesting,
I think it's very interesting.
But it's, I didn't climb Everest or anything super exciting, although I do like that stuff as well. But so.
You do like climbing Everest?
Not Everest, but I like mountains. I've gone to the Yukon a couple times. I've done, things like that.
Yeah.
And I think that there's an author that I just really love. His name is John Eldridge, and he wrote a book that really kind of says, go. It's called Wild at Heart, and if you haven't read it, you should read it. But this Wild at Heart theme is, it's okay to also do wild stuff and to kind of live, have some excitement. We cannot be robots just sitting at our desks doing, the same old. So
yeah. Well, that's it's a hard thing. I mean, when you're driven, I'm driven, you're clearly driven. It's hard to give yourself permission to do those things.
Right. I know, but it's important too. Like we were talking here, the Fouchés are interested in coming on a mission trip, and they're like, how do we do that? And bring our kids maybe, and you bring the people in your life with you on these journeys of excitement, and I think that's, part of it,
Yeah.
So I would say find a way, in your life to give back is important. Mm-hmm. It's not just make a buck. What are you doing? How are you giving back? Mm-hmm. In that experience, you'll meet a different circle of people that you would have met otherwise. Mm-hmm. In the Dominican Republic, in this community that we serve with.
And how did you find this community?
So, crazy. So Vicky, my wife, went down. There's a family friend of ours, and her 18-year-old daughter was like, I really just need something to kind of shake it up. I got to, what am I going to, trying to figure out her own life path. And Vicky was like, I used to always do mission trips. Why don't I take you? Why don't the two of us go on a mission trip? So they went down on this, to this community and met this place, and at the time it was just a church, maybe the size of this room, and they started serving alongside it, and she came back, and I could just see the lights really got brighter for her, my wife, Vicky, and I said, well, can we do that together? And so the next year I went with her. She was a leader of a trip. I was just one of the campers, and we did that, and then I said, it'd be really awesome if we could do this together. And so that's really how it started. Wow. And, there's so many places that have needs, and you don't need a passport to do this. I mean, you don't have to go somewhere. It just so happens to be that this is where we are. And they embraced us, and we embraced them. And these are friends like family to us now. So they're not just someone that we go and see. I don't think a week goes by that I don't talk to many of them every week.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yep. And
how often have you been down there?
I think this winter we're planning our 20th trip.
Wow.
Yep, because we're going to go in July with a group of high school kids, and then we're going to go in January with Colliers, and then we're going to go in February with my church, Berean Baptist in Burnsville. Yeah. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, so that's been really good.
Yeah.
But we've gone to Africa, we've gone to Guatemala, we've gone to Mexico quite a few times on trips as well. So we've done other trips as well. It just so happens that
mission trips.
That are mission trips.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And how do you find those?
kind of
Other trips.
like a lot of things, they find you.
Okay.
Kind of like our conversation about the DR and other things like this. And it's like, oh, it's interesting, you know? And so if you say you're available in your heart, all of a sudden those things will start opening up. And I think it's really first the decision that you have to make as a person. I think I'm really looking for some opportunities to serve. And then all of a sudden be like, oh, there's 10 things all of a sudden in front of me that are there. So that you can do that with. Yeah.
That's really good advice.
Yeah, you know, and by the way, you know, Minneapolis is the United Nations of countries.
It
And
really
we have
is.
so many nations represented here. And so there's such an opportunity, even just within our own community
Right.
here, to serve and to
Yeah.
help, you know. And so, you know, my wife and I used to do a lot more locally than we were. And I think that's the next phase of our life, too. So, yeah, so we do more and more of that. So.
Yeah. Well, there is. I mean, I have always said, you know, you can get in your car and, I mean, there's probably someone on your street that needs
Oh, for sure.
something, but like you can get in your car and find families, you know, 10 minutes, find families that are just barely
Oh,
making
yeah.
it.
You know, one really great thing to do, like Union Gospel Missions allows groups to volunteer at it, right?
Yep.
And you go there and you help them serve a meal, and you will then be, yep, okay, I get it. I know how I can help, and that by itself is a really a good thing. So.
Yeah, I do. I serve lunch at the Crisis Nursery and bring different people there once a month.
And so we used to do Crisis Nursery on 38th, kind of near Chicago there.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
we used to volunteer there too. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you should come with me sometime.
Okay, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, and they
it's-
really do. And these kids, they're in a tough place, and they bring nursery-age kids to this place, and they
Yeah.
take care of them for the day.
Up to 72 hours,
and
yeah.
gives the parent a chance to catch their breath and get
Totally.
find some resources.
And
yeah.
then they team up with the parents to help them, you know, just in life ongoing. It's not
Right.
just
It's not just a one and done,
babysitting
right?
service.
Yeah, and that was started at one of the local synagogues, I think, is where it started from. And it was just a bunch of people realized there's a need. Let's dig in.
Yeah,
so it's
I
good.
mean, there's a lot of different ways to kind
Yeah.
of serve. Where do you think things are going to end up capital markets wise?
Oh, yeah.
You know, in the next 12 to 18 months. I mean, it feels like things aren't really selling actively quite yet, but that
We have
feels
a lot
like it's
of people
coming.
interested. You can
Okay.
feel the energy.
Okay.
You can just tell there's energy in it, right? And so I would say that our activity for doing opinions of value have really increased.
Okay.
Which is like a tell of what's to come.
coming? Yeah.
We have many investors that are saying, I need to buy some real estate. Where can I find it? You know, what are some opportunities? There's some tensions because we are a couple of years after a super low cap rate.
Yeah.
So these sellers are thinking, I missed it. But now the rents have been growing, so I think some of these same sellers are going to realize maybe this isn't a bad time. Maybe I still can get my number. The cap rate might be a little bit higher, but I'm still getting my number because rents have grown. And then we just sold one project to a group that they see the great opportunity to grow rents. They were going to be better and more aggressive at growing rents than the previous seller. And so this transaction happened at a very low cap rate, and the seller was super happy because sold it to someone else that was inspired to grow the rents, and they paid the price. So we'll see more and more of that. Now, the headwind in that is the office market. That's a serious prop wash on all the product types for commercial real estate. So banking and some of the other things aren't quite the same because of all of that, but we're working through that. And we're also seeing some headwind on costs of improvements and the things, right? The effects of the tariffs really haven't hit our tenant improvement markets as much yet, but that's probably coming.
Yeah.
If we don't get that resolved. But overall, the costs of improvements have just skyrocketed. And so a building that's got industrial building that's got office and warehouse, the office portion of it is like an office building, and that costs sometimes $100 a foot to build out new space. So rents have to be quite high to just pay the costs of the
TIs,
tenant
yeah.
improvements. But retail is super strong.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like in capital markets for retail is crazy popular right
Which
now.
is crazy because it just doesn't seem like it was that long ago that nobody would touch
No one would touch it, right? You know, and the pandemic was going to change all of retail and it was all going to go away. Now suddenly it's like,
it's
this thing works, but not every retail, right?
Yeah,
you know, the big malls and
sure.
some of the other things they're all went over the dam.
Well, it kind of feels like everything's the same and yet it changes. Like it's like I can say that at the same time. Like it's just the same principles have applied since the beginning of time.
Yep.
And yet, there's nuances to it and kind of understanding those nuances. I have a question for you. So, when I first entered this business, the most of the properties in Minnesota were owned by individuals or families.
Right.
And, thanks to you, we have a lot more institutional investment in this community. But statistics show that there's still about 60% of the commercial real estate in the United States is owned by private individual groups or people.
Yep.
And a lot of those groups and people are kind of aging out where they may not want the hands-on management. They're, getting to retirement or even passing on things. Yeah. So
need a plan.
Do you see that trend will kind of double down, that institutions will own most of the real estate, or do you think there's still a big opportunity for individuals?
Yeah, I think it's a big opportunity for individuals. The difference is there's a lot of institutional capital that will partner with an individual as an operator. And so if you and I decided to buy this building, we could do that, and we might make a call and find someone that would be institutional capital to buy it. So we could actually buy a larger deal, even though, we have maybe $50 between the two of us that we could buy it with.
Okay.
So the other thing that I think is going to happen is institutions are now realizing that they bought too much of the bottom half of the quality. And so we're seeing institutions saying, I think we're going to sell out of strength, given the next opportunity to a private group. Commonly, that's private money with institutional backing, but sometimes it's just private money.
Okay.
Of course, sometimes it's institutional money, but it's not as always easy. It's like, where does one end and one begin? The private and the institutional on these transactions, they're very different.
Yeah.
And so we're going to see different capital stacks, different ways a lot of these things are happening.
Yeah.
And so I think it's going to change. Having done this now for 40 years next week, I've seen the ups and downs of different times where interest rates or economy or pandemics or all these different things can change everything. And if you don't like the weather, wait a minute, it'll change. And that's the same thing for our industry, right? And so to be able to pivot and to understand how this next season of, what this next part is like is important, right? And to understand the different facets. And so I think the professionalism of what we do is going to become even more important this next cycle. You can't just go, what I did to start in my business probably won't work again, right? You need to kind of have a better practice and a better professional knowledge of what to do next. So
yeah, it's gotten more sophisticated, right? But it's
the opportunity is enormous. There's so much opportunity in our industry. We have so many places to go to create value and to earn a really good income, whether as a broker or an owner. I mean, I don't think in my 40 years I've never seen such a good time. So.
Well, I am looking forward to working side by side with you and learn about that and experience this next.
This has only been 5 minutes now, right?
Yeah. we can kind of do section.
Went by like that.
Session 2, if you'd like.
I think everyone's heard enough about me, but this has been really special. I really appreciate you doing this. It's a great thing for people to be able to listen in and hear different stories.
Yeah.
And so being a storyteller and you're a story collector.
It's my honor.
Yeah, it really is special. So thanks so much. God bless.
Thank you.
Yep. All right.